couldn't make it refer back to it. So don't feel like we're putting you on in front of some big audience here. Only a handful see these.
So it does look like it is live streaming.
Okay.
As far as I can tell.
It should open in a new tab. You should actually see ourselves playing back.
Yep.
Then yeah, you're good. You can close that tab. Then it is live. And I'm seeing it, and I'm logged into our YouTube studio, and I do see it live, so you're good.
Okay, great. Great. So welcome to another edition of the New Member Meetup. We do this once a month. It's the third Friday of every month, and we have a guest presentation today from Bob. He's going to share a little bit about the efforts the community has been putting together for animal prosthetics. Afterwards, we'll go around and everybody can introduce ourselves, and we will learn a little bit about your goals and how we can help. So without further delay, let me pass the mic to Bob Rieger, and I can take care of screen sharing for you, Bob.
All right, thank you. So we have Kevin, you're on. Is there somebody else on here? Am I?
Right now, it's just us. Kevin is our only guest at the moment, but
Okay.
others might join us.
Well, Kevin, good to meet you. I know Jeremy and Ben quite well already, but I'm a volunteer. I'll say more later, but I'm a volunteer for about 4 years now with e-NABLE, and I assist the community in a number of roles, in addition to being a maker myself, fabricate and donate prostheses. So today I just wanted to introduce a new effort within e-NABLE, and that is, typically we deal with humans, and we deal with human hands, and we deal with human arms. We do not deal with human lower limbs, and the reason largely is because there is liability and there are practical considerations to the reliability and robustness or ability of 3D printed plastic to hold up a normal body weight. So we have concerns there, and some of our volunteers are working on that. But recently we realized that there's a whole nother population of potential recipient, and that's the animal kingdom. And I don't know, Kevin, have you seen on any of the various social media sites or meme sites or YouTube, have you seen where people have made prostheses for animals?
I actually have. Not that many though, and not very recently either.
Right. Typically what you see are, of course, they all involve, or most of them involve a leg, so the animal can ambulate or walk better. Sometimes you see replacement bills for birds. I've seen a replacement shell for a tortoise. So there are structural parts, but usually they involve dogs and cats. And so what we decided as a community is to increase our mission, is to start an animal prosthetics or an animal prostheses space and begin to promote this within the community. Now, unlike humans, I think what we're learning is there's a greater diversity and greater customization required for animals. In e-NABLE, Kevin, you'll learn that we have X number of standard designs, of which 3 or 4, frankly, are the most commonly used. And the standard designs, when they're properly scaled, can generally fit a lot of our recipients. Sometimes customization, whether it's sizing and scaling the device differently in the 3 dimensions, down to where people who have 3D modeling skills can actually make design changes. And there are indeed modifications to a number of these standard designs for people who might have a thumb or not have a thumb, and even devices that are specially made to hold instruments or hold a ball or hammer or some other device or some other tool. But with what we're seeing with animals is that there really are no standard devices, and every animal is going to be presented as a special case of customization. Even if you take two dogs and, let's say one of them is missing a leg, depending on how much anatomy is left or the breed of dog or the activity of dog, that can affect the ultimate design. Here's a video. This is a woman that has reached out to us. Her name is Amy. She works for 25 years with an animal rescue facility. And she recently made a frame and a harness that allows the dog to walk. And I think something else we're learning is that these prostheses don't have to be all 3D printed. In fact, I was noting in this, you'll notice she has a frame with a harness, and the dog is suspended from the harness, and the frame is on wheels. It's an elegant solution. It's simple. She 3D printed the parts. I'm not sure I would have gone and 3D printed them. It looks like something you could assemble at the hardware store, which would have been frankly easier and perhaps more robust. But nonetheless, you can 3D print that. But you'll see it has casters. It has a harness. It has some types of elastic. So something to point out when we deal with animal prostheses is that I think we're going to be utilizing other fabrication techniques and technologies in addition to 3D printing. Now, I've also seen, so this was on our website. What Ben is showing is the animal prosthetics space on our hub. And we're right now in the mode of trying to populate that with stories, with examples, with cases. You can see, Ben, if you just scroll back there, one of our volunteers in Israel, Yoav Menon, provided a link for a TV series about prostheses for animals. And this is a company that does all kinds of prostheses. What you find, and you know, a lot of these are extremely high tech. And I don't think, I mean, look at the weight that's being supported on that for the horse. I don't think we are promoting that you have to get into the capability of using aluminum and carbon fiber and steel and all these different materials. But I think we're at the stage, and Jeremy, Ben, please chime in here. I think we're kind of in the missionary stage at this point. We're trying to get the word out. We're trying to develop some interest. We're trying to say, hey, e-NABLE isn't just about human beings. Life has many forms. And, if we could make a little artificial leg for a hamster, somebody should try to do that. Jeremy, Ben, do you chime in at this point?
I'm learning along with Kevin here, Bob. I think you're doing a great
Okay.
job. Yeah.
I think at the very early stage, one of the things we did was promote the concept within the community via the hub. And we receive replies from 10, 15, 20 people saying, hey, that's a great idea. I know a dog that needs a leg. I know a cat that, and then one of my other functions is I man the help desk for e-NABLE, where anybody in the world can send in a request, a question. A lot of them are device requests. And it just so happened that the first week we launched this, several tickets, several inquiries came into the help desk, one of which was a new paw for a sloth. Now, we posted this, and you can see Ben is highlighting it. So what do? We put the word out to the community and we say, hey, is anybody interested? Does anybody know anything about this? Well, I haven't seen too many sloths recently, but I would imagine that since they're tree-dwelling animals and they move slowly, and I've seen, videos of them hanging by one hand some significant amount of body weight, that this might not be a trivial case. But nonetheless, we put it out there. And again, this is missionary. We're trying to generate interest, trying to generate thoughts. I did see online a tortoise was run over and the shell was cracked. And somebody fabricated a brand new 3D shell, 3D printed shell for the tortoise. And it was put over the damage because, you know, you can't just pick up its innards and transplant it. It was put over and formed and molded, printed that way, over the damaged shell where the damaged parts were cut away. Look at the beak for an eagle. I received a help desk ticket that said, "Can you help my friend Myrtle the goose?" And it was from a retirement community somewhere in the South. And this lady wrote and said, "We have a goose that resides in our pond, and the poor thing needs a leg and it needs a beak. Can you provide a beak and a leg for Myrtle the goose?" So again, what we do is we put these out to the community. Now, I don't know at this point how many are being worked on. I've followed up. I would contend that in some ways dealing with an animal may be better or worse than the human. I think in one case, the animal maybe doesn't sit still as well as a human, can't tell you what it likes and dislikes, at least in the language we understand. It can perhaps show it. But I do believe animals have one trait which humans may not, and that is honesty. Animals will tell you exactly, I believe, what they like and don't like in some way. And it may be just throwing the thing off and refusing to wear it. But so, you know, Kevin, if you're interested in joining e-NABLE, I would recommend to you, and I would recommend anybody viewing this video, don't think of e-NABLE simply as human beings. Realize that we are indeed trying to reach out to animals. I would hazard a guess that there are numerically many more animals that could use help, perhaps, than humans. And we just may not see them every day. So that's my presentation. It's kind of an overview, it's still, and I think it always will be, a work in progress. I doubt if it will ever become a mainstream item within e-NABLE, but I think it will generate interest among a subset of animal loving people. Now, to conclude, one of the last missionary items I've done is reached out to a chapter of ours that is a medical school at the University of Tennessee. And I contacted them and said, "Hey, do you have a veterinary school there that you might want to work in conjunction with?" And it turns out they don't, but they have friends that are in vet schools in other states, and they're going to spread the word. So this is an initiative that is going to be carried by word of mouth, by internet, and we'll see where it goes. Kind of exciting. And we'll continue to post interesting cases, and we'll see who takes it up. That's what I have.
To add on to Bob's presentation, right now we're looking at the e-NABLE chapter list, and that's something that can give you a sense of different formal chapters. There's also volunteers in many more places, in about twice as many countries, that aren't affiliated with a chapter. If we go back to the hub, you'll see that there's all these different spaces. There's sort of like group pages, and animal prosthetics is right at the top with 103 members. It's one of the more popular spaces that have sprung up. If you go to the main forum, which is all the way at the left in the hub, you'll see that there's these topics for each post, and you can actually filter them to find exactly what you're looking for. Assistive technology and universal design is currently where we're tagging the animal prosthetics, but it gives you a sense of a wider scope of devices, not just prosthetic hands and 3D printing, but You'll see that there was a post a few days ago. A woman is looking for an adapter for her to be able to play her musical instrument. There's a whole list of things that lie a little bit outside of 3D printed prosthetics, including here's a helmet for a chinchilla, or no, a chihuahua.
That's one of the cases I posted. That's my post.
Yeah. So again, to dig through all of the posts, you'll find that there's that filter within the hub, and you can just click on these topics and it'll also sort it for you.
I will point out also that if you just search on some of the design websites like Thingiverse, not only are there prostheses for animals actually there, but there's plenty of different types of toys you can 3D print. And you can kind of tailor toys for certain animals as to what particular activity or skill you want them to perform, even training toys. So that's not necessarily assistive in a medical sense, but if it helps with training or behavior, perhaps that could also be included. So there's the internet is rich with designs and ideas on it.
So here's a post that Skip made about Ninjaflex Dog Bones. So you can dig through our forum to find some old posts and look on other platforms as well. But this is a post from 2015, so you can use the search feature to find more of what you're looking for. So maybe on that note, if we want to go around really quick and introduce ourselves, I'll start. My name's Ben. I've been involved with e-NABLE the last 2.5 years or so on the media coordination. And it's been really wonderful to be able to organize some of these community meetings. So a big thanks to Bob for coming and presenting this month, and we'll have another presenter next month for the new member meetup. For the first 10 minutes or so, we'll have a presentation to give people that are new to the community more of a sense of some of the exciting activities that are going on and how people are contributing. Maybe I can pass it to you, Kevin.
Oh, hi.
Put your video on.
What?
Put the video on.
No. So I'm Kevin, and I have been interested in getting into e-NABLE, as I would like to do something like this for a project as a college project, to make myself seem interesting and different than anyone else that they might be accepting in. And probably like everyone else who has played Deus Ex, I've been interested in creating prosthetics for people, whether it be to make a job easier or to bring it to a normal level.
Great. And you said you're in South Carolina.
Yes.
Where in
And
South
currently
Carolina?
finishing up high school.
I am a junior in high school. I'm trying to get ahead so I'm not bulldozed with work and application.
Very cool. And what's your experience with 3D printing? Have you taken any classes or tried 3D printing before?
I have taken a few summer classes and have, with friends of mine, used their 3D printers to create whatever.
Great. Very cool. I guess one last thing I can show you is if you go again into the hub and go to the filters, we do have a topic called education. That's one of the most popular topics. About half of our chapters are within high schools or colleges. And if you scroll down, you'll see that there's a lot of high school students from around the world that are involved in different projects. Some really impressive work as well. Let's see if I can, yeah. So last month in our education. We have a monthly meeting that's specifically focused on education. We had a high school student from Spain share her bionic design, which was awesome. So, you know, again, to get some ideas and inspiration, there's a lot of projects going on. You might even be able to find some people to collaborate with. That can be, I think, some motivation, and also doesn't necessarily need to be another high school. It could be a college student. You know, you could be contributing to an existing project that somebody has in a university setting. So, any thoughts of the kind of work you'd like to do within the community, 3D modeling, or specifically with 3D printing?
I have a particular passion for 3D modeling, but I don't believe my skill level is equivalent to what you guys are doing here. So I would probably be 3D printing and possibly, yeah, so 3D printing stuff.
Great. So we have another space called the New Members Welcome Space. I can share the link to this in the chat. We've got a wiki that has a whole bunch of training activities, videos related to Fusion 360. Jeremy did some really great presentations about device sizing and virtual fitting techniques. But there could be some inspiring 3D modeling tutorials for you to check out. So I'll add those into the chat. And maybe I can pass the mic over to Jeremy. Do you want to introduce yourself and your contributions within e-NABLE?
I'm just another longtime volunteer and been helping more behind the scenes in recent years. I have a business of my own called 3D Universe that has supported e-NABLE in a variety of ways. We make the assembly materials kits for the community, and we run a help desk that helps to provide some additional support, things like that. We also developed the e-NABLE Web Central platform, which we use to help match people with people seeking devices with those who can make them. And I help just with a lot of the online infrastructure these days. I help with kind of administering the e-NABLE hub, where we do a lot of our online collaboration and sharing with one another. And I help running some of our other websites and other online infrastructure and tools, work with some of our teams and developers to kind of help coordinate those efforts. I do project management, things like that.
Great. So I'm adding some of these links into the chat on the side. In terms of a place to start, I think the hub, Jeremy mentioned that the hub is a sort of an ongoing project. There's a ton of resources there. One thing, I can share my screen again.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's make sure that we show him that new dashboard for getting started.
Yep. So let's go to the new member space, put new, and you'll see it pop up. We had an intern from Brandeis University that helped us come up with a space that really summarizes some of the major parts of the online community. So you can see the community rules, becoming a maker, sort of a section on where to find device users that are requesting devices, and then more information about chapter development. If you go into the Launchpad space, there's a lot more information about everything from fundraising to design and you know, how to collaborate with recipient volunteers. So again, just searching for new, and you'll find the new member space. Scrolling down, you'll see that we've got a bot, our e-NABLE bot, that posts twice a week with all the new members that join and where they're joining from. Lots of folks from lots of places. I think it's 107 or 108 countries that are represented by our volunteers currently. But it's also a place where people will share a little bit about themselves, with some introductions about the work that
And
they're doing.
since
Yep.
I know Kevin is looking to do some potential resume building here, you want to show him the badging system and how that works?
Great idea. So earlier we talked about the animal prosthetics page, just to familiarize you with how the badging works. You'll see here's Bob, who's presenting for us today. If I hover over his information, you'll see that he's got all these badges. Badges are different ways that we can document and encourage volunteers to be involved and contribute. So just joining the hub is an automatic badge. Introducing yourself is also a badge, but there's a lot of ways to participate. Each device, each of the main devices has a specific badge associated with it. So if somebody decides to print a kinetic hand, you'll see that there is some criteria for how to do that. You can see all the people that have claimed that badge, which is great. It gives you a sense of some resources. You can ask this community some questions. Jeremy has printed the kinetic hand. So if that's an interest of yours, he is a resource along with all these other people. Claiming a badge is just as easy as filling out a form, uploading some images. There's a guide to walk you through it. And actually the man behind the curtain for reviewing badges is Bob Rieger as well. So once a badge has been submitted, we do go through them on a regular basis, just to make sure that people have done the process correctly. Sometimes some documentation needs to be updated. You'll see in the forum on the side, there's the latest claimed badges. So you can also see these are all members from different parts of the world that have claimed badges. So let's see. The Phoenix hand, we've got 21 hours ago, a new user getting involved, printing a new device. So that's how the badges work. And again, once you have a badge, you'll see that it shows up on your profile. So before I forget, I'm going to add some links in the chat. The new member space. Bob or Jeremy, anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure he was aware of
I
that.
think you gave a good overview. I think I'm speaking to Kevin, but I realize that other people may be seeing this. It really depends on how far you want to take this, Kevin. If it's a project for you to get into college, that's one thing. If it's something you want to continue, and we would certainly hope that would be the case, you can go as far as you want to take it. So there's plenty of achievement of capability. I joined 4 years ago, not knowing anything about this, but since then I've printed, printed, assembled, and donated 40 devices in 4 years, about 10 a year.
And I think it's worth pointing out that's both a positive as well as a challenging aspect of this community. This is what we describe as a duocracy. That is,
right.
Nobody's in charge here. Nobody is managing anything here per se. We kind of do what we refer to as gardening and just kind of trying to tie things together. But for the most part, everyone does what they want to do. They operate within the community however they feel comfortable. And so the challenge with that is there's not necessarily somebody to kind of hold your hand and say, this is what we need you to do, and kind of work you through that process. It's more a matter of kind of taking it upon yourself. We try, and we don't always do a good job, but we try to kind of share the resources that we have and the tools so that people can get involved in any area that's of interest. But it's ultimately up to each individual to sort of decide where you want to focus and then sort of take it upon yourself to move forward in that direction. And we'll help where we can.
Right. And I'm going to share a link to the e-NABLE student chapter networking event. This was something that we ran back in November. This was almost 8 hours or 7.5 hours of presentations from people around the world. We've got a lot of, you can watch the whole event if you'd like, or you can skip around to the different sections. We've got just some really exciting presentations from professors at Marymount University. There also was some really interesting makerspace, online makerspace tour information from Ian Roy. You can just sort of scroll through it
Now
on your own.
presentation is very much worth watching in entirety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
That's a peek into the future.
Yeah, it's really wonderful stuff. And you can browse through that on your own and see what speaks to you. You know, and again, there's just some really great student chapters. Let's see, e-NABLE Tech is a chapter in Mexico, in Guadalajara, that is connected to a university there, a technical university, and they also talk about animal prosthetics that they're working on, and some really great projects from other high school students as well. Here's a presentation from Hayward, California. So I'm going to add that into the chat, but that could be really inspiring for you, just to get a sense of things that you can work on and the kind of impact that you can make. It doesn't necessarily need to go directly to a device user. You can do this just to sort of learn about the process, but there are schools and volunteers that are making a difference.
Guys, I'm going to have to excuse myself. I will leave you, Kevin, in the capable hands of Ben and Bob to wrap things up here, but it's good to see y'all.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy.
See you.
I think maybe we should, kind of wrap up here and ask if there's any questions that Kevin has. He's heard a lot of material and we've given him a fire hose.
Yeah. Actually, something I've been wondering is, with the prosthetics that are usually made, what percentage of the arm is usually printed? Because when I first figured out about this was with a Boy Scout group I used to be part of, and they printed some hands, but they required a wrist to operate.
Right. The great point. So there's different ways of activating devices. You'll see it on the device page, that they can be organized by the kind of limb difference that somebody has. So there's above the elbow, there's below the elbow. There's different variations of that in terms of what devices will fit. Bob is much more of an expert than I am on which devices fit.
Well, as Ben said, there's two main devices, although there are flavors of each. So all our devices, as you've seen, Kevin, are mechanical. They're actuated by a movable joint. So if you have a movable wrist, but are missing, let's say, fingers, have a partial palm, then we have hands that we call hands, that prosthetic hands. If you don't have a movable wrist, but you have a functional elbow, then you have an arm. We also have experimental, and Ben, I still would think these are experimental, the work of Nate Monroe, for instance. Let's say you don't have a functional wrist or elbow. What do? Well, we have devices that are called transhumeral, which would picture somebody with a partial limb above the elbow, a stump, if you will, and a cup that has the prosthesis attached to it that fits up into that. And you can attach that to the residual anatomy above the elbow. But then how do you actuate it? Because there's nothing that they have that moves. But indeed they do. They have a shoulder. And it involves placing a scapula plate with some type of a double-sided tape or attached to an article of clothing that when they pull their arm forward, what is left of their arm forward, it pulls against the scapular plate in the back and would articulate the fingers. But those are experimental and they still are requiring a great deal of development. Now, when you look at the hand, sometimes the person has a full anatomy, but some type of paralysis. Well, we have exoskeleton. We have devices that fit over and attach and then can move existing fingers when normal movement is not possible. But I would say, Ben, the bulk of our devices are mechanical hands and mechanical arms. And the only criteria is you either have a functional wrist or a functional elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. That's really all I can come up with right now. I wish I had more off the
That's
top of
fine.
There are
Well-
also adapters. So
Yes.
there's devices like here's a guitar pick that Nate Monroe designed. So there's a lot of different things that you can think of in terms of specific activities, playing music, paddling a canoe, jumping rope, riding a bicycle. Those aren't something that use a traditional prosthetic device. They involve an adapter.
Yeah, I can see how that would make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Well, what I recommend you do, Kevin, is you review a lot of this information. I mean, you have a wealth of information Ben has presented and in most cases prepared. And then, you can certainly go to the help desk and you can ask questions. I would probably be the person answering it. But you can also post in the forum of the hub and you can not only get input from Ben and I, you can get input from hopefully 1,500 other volunteers or 2,000 other volunteers. So, we have the tools there. And as Jeremy said, it's up to you to decide how much or how little you want to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And feel free to reach out to any chapters that are in your area. Let's just take a quick look before we wrap up today. So you'll see that we have going up.
Down, South Carolina.
Down. Yes.
We don't have a chapter in the middle of Lake Superior.
No, we don't. Hold on, let me zoom out a little bit.
On the East Coast. I'm basically right next to the border of South and North Carolina. So
Yeah. So you can do some exploring with the chapter map, but you'll see that there's some chapters involved in the area. You said you're near the coast.
So
I'm sorry.
I'm near the North and South Carolina border. So
Okay. So
that one would probably be very close.
okay, great. So Greenville, and you can see that there's an email address. You can check their Facebook page to see how active they are. Some chapters haven't posted in a while, so there might be, less activity going on. But you can feel free to explore chapters and learn more about what other projects and teams are doing.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you
and
for coming.
being part of this.
No,
Wish
not
you
a
luck.
problem.
And again, we're here if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day.
Take care, Bob. Take care, Kevin.
You too. Take care, Ben.